The rain didn't just fall that night. It punished the earth. It slammed against the pavement, drowned the streetlights, and soaked through the thin shirt, clinging to Daniel Okoro's body as he stood outside the only place he had ever called home. And inside, his wife was laughing, not crying, not regretting, laughing. "Get out!" Her voice echoed again from behind the door, sharp, cold, final. "I said, get out, Daniel. I'm done pretending with you." Daniel didn't move at first. His hand hovered inches from the door, trembling, not from the cold, but from disbelief, from the kind of pain that doesn't scream. It just sinks. Then slowly, he stepped back. If you're watching this right now, pause for a second and tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. And if stories like this hit you deep, don't forget to subscribe to Stone Tales, because what you're about to witness isn't just a story, it's a storm. Because that night, the man she called worthless controlled a $33 million deal that would change everything. Daniel Okoro was the kind of man people ignored, not because he was weak, but because he looked ordinary. He wore simple clothes, no flashy watches, no loud presence, no need to prove anything. To the outside world, he was just another struggling man trying to survive in a city that rewarded noise and punished silence. But what no one knew was that Daniel had mastered the art of invisibility, and invisibility is power. 5 years earlier, Daniel had met Amara. She was everything he wasn't: bold, confident, magnetic. She walked into rooms like she owned them, spoke like the world owed her attention, and dressed like she had already arrived at the top. He fell in love with her fire. She fell in love with what she thought was potential. At least, that's what she told her friends. "He's not rich now," she would say with a smile, sipping expensive wine she couldn't afford. "But he has dreams. I can work with that." Daniel heard those words once. He said nothing, because Daniel didn't believe in announcing dreams. He believed in executing them quietly. In the early years of their marriage, life was simple. Too simple for Amara. Daniel worked long hours, often disappearing for days, under the excuse of consulting work. He never explained much, never bragged, never showed bank alerts, never upgraded their lifestyle. To Amara, it looked like failure. To Daniel, it was strategy, because behind the scenes, Daniel wasn't just working, he was building. He had partnered with a private investment firm, one that specialized in silent acquisitions. They didn't chase headlines. They didn't seek attention. They moved quietly, buying assets, controlling deals, and positioning themselves in industries most people didn't even understand. And Daniel was their ghost, the negotiator no one saw, the strategist no one credited, the man who could sit across from billionaires in worn-out shoes and walk away owning the conversation. But there was one rule: total anonymity. No social media, no flashy life, no public recognition. If you wanted power in that world, you had to give up visibility. Daniel accepted that without hesitation. Amara, she never knew. "Daniel, I can't live like this anymore." That was the first crack. It happened on a quiet evening, 3 years into their marriage. The lights were dim, the air was tense, and Amara stood in the middle of the living room, arms crossed, eyes filled with something heavier than anger. Disappointment. We're stuck, she said. Look around. Nothing is changing. You're always working. But what do we have to show for it? Daniel looked at her calmly. We're stable. We have peace. We're building. No! She snapped. You are building something I can't even see. I'm the one living this life, Daniel. I'm the one being judged. That word lingered. Judged? By who? Daniel never asked, because deep down, he already knew. Amara didn't just want a better life. She wanted validation, and validation doesn't wait for slow success. It demands instant proof. Things changed after that, not overnight, but gradually. Amara started going out more. New friends, new circles, people who talked about money loudly, people who measured worth in brands, cars, and locations. And slowly, Daniel became invisible in his own marriage. Why don't you ever dress up? She would ask. Why don't you network? Why don't you try to be something? Each question chipped away at something deeper, not his confidence, but his patience. Because Daniel wasn't failing. He was simply unseen. Then came the name that would destroy everything. Victor Cade. Rich, charismatic, loud. The kind of man who entered a room and made sure everyone noticed. Amara met him at a networking event. Daniel never went. I don't belong in those places, he had said once. Amara didn't argue. But that night, she found someone who did. Victor Cade was everything Daniel wasn't on the surface. Designer suits, expensive cars, big promises, bigger ego. He talked about deals like trophies, investments like battles he had won, wealth like a language only he could speak. Amara was captivated, not by who he was, but by what he represented. A life she believed she deserved. Why are you still with him? Victor's voice was smooth, calculated, almost too perfect. Amara hesitated. It's complicated. No, Victor said, leaning closer, his eyes sharp. It's simple. You're wasting your time with a man who has no ambition. That sentence settled deep, because it echoed something she had already started to believe. At home, Daniel noticed the distance, the late nights, the silence, the absence. But he didn't confront her, not yet, because at the same time, something big was happening, the biggest deal of his career. $33 million, a silent acquisition that would shift control of an entire sector. Multiple stakeholders, high-risk negotiations, confidential players. And Daniel? He wasn't just involved, he was leading it. Every move, every decision, every hidden strategy. It all ran through him, but he couldn't say a word, not to anyone, not even his wife. Daniel, we need to talk. The words came one night like a verdict. He looked up from his laptop slowly. Okay. Amara stood there, perfectly dressed, like she was preparing for a life he wasn't part of. I've been thinking, she said carefully. That's usually dangerous, Daniel replied quietly. She ignored that. I can't keep doing this. I feel stuck. I feel embarrassed. Daniel closed his laptop. Embarrassed of what? Of you. Silence. Heavy, sharp, final. Daniel didn't react immediately, because sometimes the most painful words don't hurt at first. They echo. I see other women, she continued, her voice gaining strength, living the life I should be living, traveling, enjoying, being with men who actually provide. I provide, Daniel said calmly. No, she snapped. You survive. There's a difference. That was the moment something shifted inside him. Not anger. Clarity. "I've met someone," she said finally. Daniel wasn't surprised. He had known. He just needed to hear it. "Victor?" he asked. Her eyes widened slightly. "You know him?" Daniel held her gaze. "I know of him." That was the truth. And yet, not the whole truth, because Victor Cade had no idea who Daniel really was. And that would become his biggest mistake. "I'm leaving," Amara said. Daniel nodded slowly. "Okay. No fight, no begging, no drama, just acceptance." And somehow that made her angrier. "You're not even going to try?" she demanded. Daniel stood up, calm as ever. "If someone wants to leave, you don't hold them. You open the door." Her jaw tightened. "Good," she said coldly, "because I don't need permission." 2 weeks later, she didn't just leave. She erased him. Clothes packed, photos gone, silence everywhere. And then, the final blow, the night of the rain, Victor stood behind her, smiling, watching, enjoying. "Tell him," he whispered. Amara stepped forward, her expression colder than Daniel had ever seen. "You need to leave this house," she said flatly. Daniel frowned slightly. "What?" "It's not your house anymore." He blinked once. "What do you mean?" Victor stepped in, his voice smooth. "We've made some arrangements." Daniel's eyes shifted to him, calm, observant, dangerous. "Arrangements," he repeated. Amara crossed her arms. "Victor helped me see the truth. I deserve better. And honestly, you've held me back long enough." Daniel looked at her, really looked at her, as if trying to understand how love could transform into this. "This house," Victor continued casually, "will be under new ownership soon. You should start fresh somewhere else." Daniel let out a slow breath. Then he smiled, not out of humor, but recognition, because at that exact moment his phone vibrated. One message, one line. "Deal confirmed. Final signature needed. All parties aligned. Awaiting your approval. 33 million. Everything ready." Daniel looked up slowly, first at Amara, then at Victor, and for the first time, something in his eyes changed. Not pain, not sadness. Power. "You said I was poor," Daniel said quietly. Amara scoffed. "Because you are." He nodded slowly, then turned toward the door. Rain pouring, thunder roaring, everything crashing. And just as he stepped out, Victor's phone rang. He answered casually. "Yeah?" A pause. Then his face changed. Confusion. Then shock. Then fear. "What do you mean the deal is frozen?" Victor snapped. Another pause. His grip tightened. Who the hell is Daniel Okoro? And why is everything suddenly under his control? Amara froze. Daniel stopped walking. But he didn't turn back. Not yet. Because in that moment, the man she called worthless had just become the most powerful person in the room, and she had just thrown him away. The rain didn't stop. It only grew louder, heavier, like the sky itself was reacting to the truth, finally breaking loose. Daniel stood just outside the door, his back to them, his shirt soaked through, his hand resting calmly at his side. Behind him, everything was unraveling. "Put it on speaker," Amara demanded, her voice trembling, not with authority this time, but with fear. Victor hesitated. That hesitation alone said everything. "Put it on speaker, Victor," she snapped again. Slowly, reluctantly, he did. A voice filled the room, cold, professional, unforgiving. "Mr. Cade, we've encountered a critical issue. The primary authority behind the acquisition has exercised full control. All signatures are now void pending his confirmation." Victor's jaw tightened. "What authority?" "I'm leading this deal." A pause. Then, "No, sir, you were participating in the deal. The controlling party has always been Mr. Daniel Okoro." Silence. Heavy, suffocating, absolute. Amara's eyes widened, as if reality itself had just cracked open in front of her. Victor laughed nervously. "That's not possible. There's been a mistake." "There is no mistake," the voice replied. "Without Mr. Okoro's approval, the $33 million deal does not exist." The call ended just like that. Final. For a moment, no one moved. Not Amara, not Victor, not even the rain dared to interrupt what had just happened. Then slowly, Amara turned. Her eyes locked onto Daniel's back. Daniel! It wasn't the same voice anymore. Gone was the sharpness. Gone was the pride. What remained was something fragile, something desperate. "Daniel, what is he talking about?" Daniel exhaled softly. Then finally, he turned around. For the first time in years, Amara truly saw him. Not the quiet man she had dismissed. Not the struggling husband she had outgrown. But something else entirely. Something dangerous. "You should go back inside," Daniel said calmly. "You'll get wet." That simple sentence broke something in her. "Stop it!" she cried, stepping forward. "Stop talking like nothing is happening. What is going on?" Victor stepped in, his confidence cracking under pressure. "You think this is funny?" he snapped. "You set this up? Some kind of trick?" Daniel looked at him and smiled. Not wide, not mocking, just knowing. "A trick?" Daniel repeated. "No." He stepped forward slowly, the rain dripping from his face, his eyes locked onto Victor's. This is called reality catching up." Victor's hands clenched into fists. "Who are you?" he demanded. Daniel tilted his head slightly. "I'm the man you built your biggest deal around, without ever realizing it." Amara staggered back slightly, her mind racing. "No," she whispered. "No, that doesn't make sense. You can't even afford the life you wanted." Daniel finished for her. She froze, because those were the exact words she had used against him. Daniel reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, tapped once, then held it up. "Let me help you understand something," he said quietly. Victor's phone buzzed again. A message. His eyes dropped to the screen, and what he saw drained every last drop of color from his face. Primary controller, Daniel Okoro. Final authority, pending approval. Failure to comply will result in permanent exclusion from all associated networks. Victor's breathing became uneven. No, this isn't possible." Daniel stepped closer, lowered his voice. "You spent months bragging about a deal you didn't even control." Victor shook his head, stepping back. "I brought investors into this. I built connections. You were a pawn," Daniel said flatly. That word hit harder than any insult, because deep down, Victor knew it was true. "I don't understand," Amara whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" Daniel looked at her, and for a moment, just a moment, there was something there. Pain, real deep pain. "I wanted to," he admitted softly, "so many times." Her breath caught. "But you didn't want to hear it," he continued. "You didn't want the truth. You wanted a performance." Amara shook her head desperately. No, I wanted us to be better. You wanted me to be louder, Daniel corrected. Flashier, someone people would see. He paused. I chose to be someone they couldn't ignore. Silence again. But this time, it was different. This silence had weight. Truth. Consequences. Victor suddenly stepped forward, his desperation now fully exposed. Okay, listen, he said quickly. We can fix this. Whatever this is, we can work together. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Together? Yes, Victor insisted. You clearly have the authority. I have the network. We can still close this deal. Daniel studied him for a moment, then laughed, not loudly, but enough to cut deep. You still don't get it, he said. He turned slightly, glancing back at the house Amara had just thrown him out of, the house she believed represented her upgrade. You built your entire image on something fragile, Daniel continued. Noise, attention, perception. He looked back at Victor. I built mine on control. Victor swallowed hard. So what do you want? He asked quietly. Daniel didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at Amara. She stood there, broken in a way he had never seen before. Not because she had lost comfort, but because she had just realized what she had thrown away. Daniel, her voice cracked. Please, that one word. Please. It was something she had never said to him before. Please what? Daniel asked gently. She stepped closer, tears now falling freely. Didn't know. I swear I didn't know. He nodded. I know. Her eyes filled with hope. So we can fix this, right? She said quickly. We can start over. I'll leave him. I don't care about any of that anymore. Victor turned sharply. Amara, shut up, she snapped, not even looking at him. Her eyes stayed locked on Daniel. I made a mistake, she said, her voice shaking. A huge mistake, but we can fix it. We have to fix it. Daniel took a slow step forward, close enough now that the rain touched both of them equally. For a moment, it felt like time had paused, like everything that had happened could still be undone. Then Daniel spoke, and everything shattered. No, the word didn't echo. It didn't need to, because its impact was immediate, absolute. Amara froze. I don't understand, she whispered. Daniel's voice was calm, steady, final. You didn't just make a mistake, Amara, he said. You made a choice. Tears streamed down her face. I chose us, she cried. I just wanted us to be better. No, Daniel replied softly. You chose what looked better. He stepped back, creating distance, the kind that couldn't be closed. I would have given you everything, he continued. Not just money, not just comfort, but stability, loyalty, truth. His voice tightened slightly. But you traded that for noise. Amara collapsed to her knees. Please, Daniel, she sobbed. Don't do this. But Daniel had already made his decision long before that night, long before Victor, long before the insults. He turned to Victor. As for you, Victor stiffened. Daniel's eyes were cold now, unrecognizable. The deal is over. Victor's face went pale. You can't. I already did. He lifted his phone again, pressed one button, and just like that, 33 million gone, not lost, redirected. New partners have been assigned, Daniel said calmly. People who understand the value of silence. Victor staggered back, his entire empire collapsing in real time. You just destroyed everything, he whispered. Daniel shook his head. No, he turned toward the street. I just removed the illusion. The rain began to ease, as if the storm itself had completed its purpose. Daniel took a few steps forward, then stopped, not because he was unsure, but because there was one final thing to say. Without turning back, he spoke. Respect is not built on what people see. A pause. It's built on what you remain when no one is watching. And then he walked away. Amara's cries faded behind him. Victor's silence followed. The house, the life, the past, all left behind. Weeks later, the story spread, quietly at first, then louder, then everywhere. Victor Cade? Bankrupt. Exposed. His network vanished overnight, because in the world he tried to play in, trust was everything. And once it was gone, so was he. Amara, she disappeared from the circles she once chased so desperately, because the truth had a way of following her. And this time, there was no one left to impress. And Daniel? He didn't celebrate. He didn't post. He didn't speak, because real power doesn't need an audience. He simply moved forward. Bigger deals, stronger control, a life built not on validation, but on truth. And somewhere, in the quiet of it all, he finally found something he had lost long ago: peace. If this story hit you deep, take a moment, because sometimes the loudest people aren't the strongest, and the quietest ones are the ones holding everything together. And remember, not everything valuable makes noise. Some things just wait.